And welcome, Pete. It's Bernadette here, and welcome to Secrets of Aussie Online Entrepreneurs. And the purpose for today is just to hear a little bit about your business and some tips that you might like to share with our listeners about how to become a successful online entrepreneur.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Well, let's get started. Now, one of the things you are really famous for is selling the MCG for $500. Now, can you just maybe explain that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great little project that I did when I was 21 years old. So it was a little perfect combination of a lot of things that the media loved. 21-year-old selling the MCG for under $500. It created a lot of intrigue. So what actually happened was I was reading a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire by Robert Allen and Mark Victor Hansen. And in the pages of the book, it tells a story of a guy in New Jersey who sold pieces of the Brooklyn Bridge, the big famous bridge between New Jersey and Manhattan, back in the late 80s or early 90s, I think it was. And he made a certificate up with the history of the Brooklyn Bridge and attached a small inch-by-inch square of the timber that he was able to buy off the company that was sort of renovating the bridge at the time. And word around the campfire was that he made about $2 million out of this. And I just thought, what a great idea. How can I rip that off? And the MCG was going under its redevelopment for the Commonwealth Games we had here quite a few years ago. So I remembered the actual seating of the Ponsford stand, one of the stands that got demolished, was timber. So made a couple of phone calls and tracked down the wrecking company that was doing the demolition, and they had some of that timber available. But they also mentioned they had a bunch of the old MCC crested carpet. Now, the MCC is like a really prestigious kind of section of the MCG. It's like a 50 or 60-year waiting list to become a member, and then you can go to any event at the MCG. And the dining room of the members area was actually inside the Ponsford stand, and it was carpeted with this dog-ugly carpet. It had the MCC crested logo all over it. Very well known, but really ugly. So anyway, they said, oh, we've got some of this carpet sitting here as well if you want that. And an idea went off in my head. I thought, oh, how about we actually do some memorabilia pieces with a photo of the MCG, a piece of this crested carpet, make it limited edition, and sell the frames off. So that's essentially what happened, and wrote a press release. 21-year-old sells the MCG for under $500, and the whole project just really blew up, and it was a huge learning curve, very profitable, and yeah, it was kind of, I guess, the first big real business venture that I actually did that got some significant press and huge success.
And so, Pete, what lessons did you learn from that exercise?
A whole lot. That PR and media is a huge angle for generating exposure and traffic to a business, because that's what generated the most awareness of the campaign. I just come back from living in America and had a big credit card debt, so didn't have a lot of money to actually spend on promotions and marketing. So that kind of what drove a lot of that. To work on your skills and really just know what you know and do that well, and outsource and leverage everything else. Like, I'm not a handyman, so I did not make the frames. I had a framing company and a memorabilia sort of company do all that for me. So I basically put a system in place based on, not because I was really smart, just because I could only do certain things. So had had the manufacturing company sort of do the framing for me, had a courier company doing the delivery for me, and had to structure the business that, okay, we knew how many pieces of the carpet could be made, or frames, sorry, could be made with the carpet. But I didn't have some funds to go and make 400 frames or 1,000 frames up front. So we kind of knew that, okay, we're going to limit it to 500 a series, but cut the carpet up, and then had the framer stockpile with carpet. And when an order came through, people were aware it was going to be a 2 or 3 week delivery time, because orders were coming through really quick and it was really busy. And we just made the frames on demand. So it was all cash flow positive from day one, because I just couldn't afford the traditional route of, okay, let's go and make 500 frames and have them sitting in a warehouse somewhere to deliver later. So by circumstance at the time, I kind of learned a lot of good lessons to say, okay, hang on, how do we cash flow the projects from day one? How do we use leverage and focus on our skill sets and let other people do what they're good at? And they're probably the two big things that I took away and applied to other projects I've since done.
Good. So fast forward these years, what's taking your focus now? What's your major project, or what's taking up your time at the moment?
A few things these days. So over the last 7 or 8 years, built up one of Australia's largest telecommunications companies, funnily enough, and it's not my skill set either. So we sell and install phone systems up and down the east coast of Australia. That's been a huge success. We've got a number of e-commerce business units under that umbrella. Simply Headsets is one of the largest, if not, I think it is the largest e-commerce site in the telco space selling headsets in Australia. So we do a lot of that sort of stuff. And do some consulting, written a couple of books. So I got my hand in a few different projects that I've sort of been able to grow over the years, and most of them have kind of been built off those foundation principles that I learned from the MCG project. You know, when we started the telco business, my business partners and I, none of us have any idea still to this day how to install a phone system, and we've been selling thousands of them for years. We started that business by going, okay, well, we'll worry about the sales and the marketing and the lead gen, and we started the business, and while I came in and consulted with these guys, I had a business in the telco space doing something completely different, and we kind of pivoted the business and started selling phone systems. And what we'd do is we'd get the inquiry, you know, the lead in, we'd talk to them, we'd convert them, we'd, you know, effectively sell them on a phone system solution, and then we'd literally give that client to a competitor to do the installation. So we would go to competitors in different states that, or even in Melbourne, who, you know, would be trying to get that same client as their own at the first point, turn around and say, look, you know, we've got this client, can you go and do the install for us? And we'd pay them to do the install, and, you know, effectively they'd steal the client and things like that, which was, you know, understandable at the time. But for us, it proved the business model. It proved that we could generate clients in the door, we could sign them up into a phone system sale that worked really well for the client, and then outsource the implementation, like the MCG frames being built. And then over time, it, you know, became much more economical and financial for us to, you know, have our own in-house techs up and down the east coast, and you know, and grow the business that way. But we started off very, you know, I think lean startup, you know, minimal viable product is this term that gets thrown around a lot these days, but we did that 8 or 9 years ago with the telco.
And so, Pete, in terms of this, the Simply headsets, is that strictly online?
Well, yes and no. Like, from a lead gen perspective, this is something that I speak about quite a bit. Is I really do think when people say they run an online business, they're absolutely fooling themselves and lying to themselves, because what an online business in the traditional sense of the definition is really a business with only one path to market, and that is your online people. You know, a business should be more than that. You know, you never heard people years ago saying, I run a Yellow Pages business, where their only path to market and advertising was Yellow Pages. Like, people didn't say that.
True. That's very true.
It's a real mind shift that I try and talk to a lot of people about, because technically, you know, you would look at Simply Headsets as an online business, as an e-com store. And, you know, the majority of our first-time visitors and first-time clients come from SEO and AdWords and other online marketing tactics. But what we have is, obviously, we have an e-commerce part of that where people buy online and transact online, and does, you know, thousands of dollars every day in that. But again, we realised that we're leaving a lot of money on the table by not having phone numbers on the site and a call centre, because people who want to buy often have questions, particularly in, you know, does this headset work with my phone system? And, you know, this space needs a little bit of, you know, customer support. But we have that phone number on the site, and even though it's an e-commerce business in the you know, visual sense when you look at the site, we actually make more revenue based off the phone calls that site generates on an e-commerce platform than the e-commerce site by itself, which is really interesting. And then obviously we've got a whole bunch of, you know, repeat things in place to get the clients to come back and buy again from us and all that sort of stuff. But fundamentally, on the surface, people would look at this business and say, oh, it's an online business. But the way we look at these things is it's a business that primarily uses the internet as its lead generation source, but is not an internet business. So I think that when you have that mindset, you make really poor and naive decisions.
I think you've really nailed that in the sense, Pete, that some people think, I don't want to put a phone number on my website, I don't want to have contact. And I think that's a little bit old school in the sense that, you know, those big American internet marketers, they just really rejected and resisted having any kind of personal contact. Whereas I think that's come full circle now. Would you agree? And what you've just said really is testament to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is horses for courses to a certain extent, in that, you know, if your business, if you want to just, you know, have a business that generates, let's say hypothetically, $80,000 a year, you don't have to talk to anybody, you can make, you know, a quote-unquote e-commerce or online business do that with no direct human engagement. You can do that, and that's absolutely fine if that's the business model and lifestyle you want to generate. for us, obviously we've got business partners and lots and lots of staff we've got to pay for, so we want to maximise the revenue of the business. So that's why we have the phone number on there. And I think when you talk about these American sort of internet marketers who talk a lot and teach a lot, I see a big issue is that what they teach works well for their business, but people kind of then trying to apply that model without any molding or shifting or adjusting to their own business. So we use a lot of the tactics that these guys talk about, a lot of the tools and platforms and stuff to market and generate leads and get conversions and opt-ins and all that sort of stuff. But we adjust it and mold it for our actual businesses to make sense, because these guys, whether it's right or wrong, they're full-time consultants. And although I consult and talk and write and stuff, I always find it really strange that these people, they consult and they talk about the leverage of a business and the leverage of business, yet they don't have a real business. They're selling time for money and they don't have staff. And for me, it's like, well, hang on. For me to make the same amount of revenue that I do from these real-world businesses, they actually sell real stuff to real people, I'd have to be speaking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at a ridiculously high price point. And I just find it a real strange thing that these people who say they're business consultants and they love the idea of business and leverage and systems, yet they sell their time for money. I just find that really bizarre and really incongruent. I think a lot of people need to look at who they're getting advice from.
And as we're speaking, Pete, I'm looking at all your businesses, and there's numerous businesses. One of the questions I'm certain people are asking is, how do you manage all this? I'm really curious to know some of your systems and processes for managing multiple businesses.
Yeah, good question. A very understanding wife is probably the first step. She knew where I was like before we got into our relationship, so I work a lot. Good business partners. There's a saying that the only ship that's guaranteed to sink is a partnership. I believe that some stage and sometimes, but I have most of these projects I have other people to rely on to do the implementation. So I'm kind of the strategy guy and the face guy, and then we have staff and or business partners to do a lot of the implementation. We have big teams in the Philippines doing a lot of stuff for every single one of our projects. So that's important.
What sort of work do
and
they
I think
do?
Also too, a range of things. So we've got from our e-commerce businesses, for example, product management. So in terms of, we get a lot of new products coming through from the manufacturers that we sell. So they manage the product on the site in terms of the descriptions and putting the images up and that kind of stuff. Price checking, doing accounts receivable for the telco business. So entering in all our accounts payable invoices for our suppliers for the hardware that we sell, so doing a lot of the bookkeeping, because that can be done. It's just data entry stuff, low-level customer service, not in the telco, because there's obviously a lot of opinions about overseas people running call centers and customer service for telco, so we don't do that. That's all in Australia. But for sort of my own consulting stuff and things like that, that's a lot of support from the Philippines team for that sort of stuff. So we have very clear demarcations between the business units. I think it's important. So, you work for this business in this business unit, you don't work for anything else. So I think really clear demarcations make a big difference. And also too, the telco is 8 or 9 years old. The e-commerce Simply Headset site, as an example, is 5 years old. So none of this started at once. This is something that I see a lot as well, is people try and go, oh wow, you're doing so much. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't start them all at the same time. They all kind of grew on each other, and one's working well, and you have that plate that spins, and it's spinning really well before you try and spin the next plate. And then you go back to the first one and make sure that first one's still spinning well before you go and spin the third plate. And that's kind of the philosophy and really bad metaphor that I've used over the years.
So Pete, in terms of people starting up an online business, and maybe you're way advanced than many, and they're just trying to get one idea up, what tips would you give them for firstly identifying a good idea that's got merit? How would you assess an idea?
Yeah, great question. The honest way I would do it, the way I would really suggest people to do it, is throw some money at it. And it's an idea people, or a concept people hate to do. If we have an idea, we're going to test it with some funds. I don't want to waste 6 months of my time or my staff's time, starting a blog and trying to get some traffic to the blog and hopefully find people actually convert. I'd rather throw a couple of $1,000s at AdWords traffic, paid advertising, to sort of see if we can, reach a market and they're interested in clicking on our ads and coming through to our site and doing something. So, really fast track it with some funds. And a lot of people get really sort of, I don't know, sort of apprehensive with that answer because it's like, well, I don't want to go and spend $2,000 on an idea that might not work. And that's, understandable. But my question is, if you're not willing to sort of test and possibly lose $2,000 in your idea, you don't really have the right mindset to start a sustainable business, because sustainable businesses need a lot of testing, and you're going to be wrong a lot, and you're going to lose money a lot. It's just the nature of business. Anyone who sort of has a beautiful sales letter that tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something and not help you. So I think that's kind of, I guess, a very high-level answer that is part of it. The other thing I really do believe is I think people jump into becoming entrepreneurs too quickly, and I think a lot of people should really look at actually doing an apprenticeship. Go to someone who's got a business and say, hey, I want to do what you're doing. Can I work for you for a few months for free, and learn what they're doing and really learn the industry and learn how online marketing actually works and what it takes to be an online entrepreneur. Because quite often you might find that, hey, you could actually team up with this person and do a new business with them and use their resources, use their community, use their followers, use their subscribers to supercharge and fast start your idea. Rather than going it cold, work with someone first and potentially offer to start up and partner with them. I've seen that work exceptionally well so many times.
And Pete, what does it take to be...
Probably most answers that you hear, but...
Yeah, but it's common sense. And one of the things you just mentioned there was some people underestimate what it takes to become an online entrepreneur. What would you say would be the 3 top qualities or traits that people must have before they can really pursue that kind of career?
Great question. I think dedication and consistency, the ability to sit your bum in a chair on a regular basis and do what needs to be done. And that doesn't mean consumption, it means creation. And like, I think so many people, what they'll do is they'll start an online business and they feel like watching a webinar or doing education-based stuff is actually helping progress their business. And it's not. It's increasing your library. And your library is not your portfolio. You need to have a portfolio. So you need to actually consume stuff. Like things like these conversations and these webinars are important. You need to have this to build up your library. But at the same time, you need to go and spend twice as much time now implementing some stuff, going and writing a blog post every single week, going and writing emails to JV partners, actually doing stuff that progresses your business. So I think the habit of sitting down and doing that is really, really important, number one. Number two, I would say the ability to see and have faith in a framework. And what I mean by that is work out what your business model is and use that as a framework and a filter. I see so many people, they'll go, okay, I want to be a blogger. I want to write blogs and I want to make money through affiliate marketing. So I have a blog. I'm going to write about this particular topic. It might be my passion of rock climbing. I'm going to write this blog about rock climbing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a lot of traffic from my blog. I'm going to make money by recommending and reviewing products and make an affiliate commission. Great business model, fantastic. And they start that and they're going okay and they're building a little bit of momentum. And then 2 months later they see this opportunity to do a digital magazine. So they go off and chase that as well. And they now have 2 business units they're trying to run. And then they figure out, well, hang on, if I start running webinars and build an email list, I could launch a home study course on how to rock climb. And they go off and chase that dream. And they end up having all these different business units that are contradictory to each other, same niche, but not helping progress the other one. They're actually distracting you from the other one. And I think that is a big issue I see. So coming back to this framework idea is, okay, if you are a blogger doing stuff like, for example, rock climbing, affiliate marketing, well, when something else comes along as an opportunity to make money, you see a sales letter or a product launch or something like that, take a breath and say, okay, how can that tool help me in my current business model? Use this frame, this business model, as a filter to say, okay, how can this complement what I'm already doing? And maybe you say, okay, well, digital magazine is a distraction, then you don't do it. Or it's like, okay, what I do, I just take the blog posts I'm doing every week and put them into a magazine and leave them there and do nothing more than just hopefully tick over a few downloads on the iTunes newsstand. I'm not going to go out and try and promote the magazine heavily and start a thing to make this magazine make me 20 grand a month. I'm just going to take what I'm already doing over here, repurpose on the magazine, and it might make me $1,000 a month. And that's a great extra $1,000 a month. I'm not going to try and build that to be a $20 million business like the sales letter told me it's going to be. I'm just going to complement what I'm already doing in a very easy, frictionless way that's going to pick up a little bit of extra income. And you're kind of not making complete jumps and trying to have 15 balls in the air. Does that make sense? I kind of tried to articulate that well.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Does that
It's
make
about
sense
the focus, and all the entrepreneurs that I've been talking to, the number one thing they all talk about is absolute focus, and not to be distracted by the shiny objects. And that is sometimes the nature of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They have an immense curiosity and love variety, and they've no sooner got one idea bubbling, they're off to another. But let's just talk about the revenue side thing. I interviewed Matt Barry from freelancer.com, and one of the things that stuck with me when I talked to him was he said, you've got to understand your revenue model. How is this going to make money before you begin? And yet I've talked to other entrepreneurs, and they believe that having a passion for something is enough, and that eventually that will make money. I'm wondering what your thoughts are, Pete, on should you go into an online business knowing exactly how you're going to make money, or is it enough just to do it through passion and hope that something comes of that?
Great question. Okay, so I think both do work. But I think you have to realize what sort of person you are. Like for me, it's always revenue driven. Like I don't love phone systems. I don't love headsets. Like that's not a passion for me. My passion is marketing, lead gen, sales, conversion, that kind of stuff, which is what we do. We're a sales and marketing company that happens to sell phone systems. It's sort of how we look at it. So for us, it's always going to be about revenue. It's like, okay, how is this going to be a profitable business unit or a business division or a new project? And it's definitely driven about the numbers. I don't have the willpower or the dedication to say, like, I love Ironman and triathlons. I do that a lot. And I know a lot of people, out there who do make significant money writing a blog and talking about Ironmans and, triathlons and tips and advice. And I read those sort of blogs. But it takes a long time to build that up. Like I don't have that dedication. I don't have that ability to sit there and just wait for it to come. I was talking to Matt Fraser on our podcast recently, Preneurcast, which is a podcast that we do every week, and he runs nomeatathlete.com, which is a huge blog with a huge audience about vegan athletes, so how to be a vegan athlete. And he was telling the story that he started the blog when he was becoming a vegan athlete and just wrote every day about his journey, and over time built up this huge audience. But it didn't create revenue for a couple of years, or any significant revenue for a while, which is fine, and that does work, and that can definitely create a great business. It has for him, but that's not my personality. And I think you need to kind of be aware of what type of person you are. If you're a type of person who gets motivated by passion, then by all means, write about what you love and do that sort of thing and really love the product and service. But I don't think that has to be the case. You have to love sales and marketing if you want to be in business and want to test stuff and do that, and that's the passion. Then that's great. Then just apply that passion to a profitable business model that you have set, that you believe in, that you will stay dedicated to for a period of time and not get distracted by the next sales letter that comes along with a great new idea for another revenue-generating business idea.
I think you've nailed it. You've got to be good at sales and marketing, no matter what you're selling, be it meditation courses, be it nutrition products, be it wellness, whatever. As woohoo product you want to make it, you've got to be good at sales and marketing. Would you say that's the essential component?
Not necessarily. I'd say that if you're the type of person who wants to build a business revenue-based, then absolutely, because it doesn't matter about the product. It's not about the product. It's about the sales and the marketing. And if that's your personality, that's great. If that's not your personality and you're a passion person, you could absolutely write a blog about meditation and find someone who's a sales and marketer, team up with and say, hey, I've built this audience of readers. I'm not monetizing this thing. I've got 10,000 readers to my blog a day. I'm not monetizing it. Do you want to partner up and show me and consult with me and just manage the business side of this, and we'll split the revenue? And you still get just to be passionate about what you do. And the other person brings their skill set. That's, absolutely. And obviously over time you'll learn how to market and stuff, but if that's not your skill set, don't try and be that, because that'll cause friction every time you sit at your desk and try and do work, and you'll just get distracted and you won't progress and you'll get angry with yourself and it'll hold you back. I see that so often as well.
And that's really tapping into what you said at the very beginning of the webinar, which is just do what you're good at. So actually, I really want to ask you, you've talked about, if you've got a passion for, rock climbing or Ironman, and you've written a blog, how do you build an audience for a blog? I reckon that's one of the key questions everybody would love the answer to.
I think there's a couple of things. Consistency. that this is something that I've gone through recently with preneurmarketing.com, which is kind of the blog where I rant and rave about the business stuff that we're doing, and kind of share our tales of success and failure. That we kind of took our eye off the ball, and I stopped writing at it regularly, and the audience just died and disappeared. So consistency is a big thing. First and foremost is it's weird that people think, oh, hang on, I've got to write this one amazing viral blog post, and it will generate this wave of traffic, and then I'll be consistent. And in theory that's great, but I'm yet to see that really work for anybody. Unfortunately, you've got to put the hours in first and build that muscle up. Osher Gunsberg, who is the host of The Bachelor and was Australian Idol here in Australia, has started this fantastic podcast. He's a friend of mine, and interviewing hugely successful people that he has contacts with. And the theme of every single conversation comes back to they did an apprenticeship for years. They built up an audience, whatever it might have been, by doing the 3 a.m. radio shift for 3 years before they became the great stand-up comic they are, or the breakfast host. So I think that applies here as well, is that you need to just put the hours in and do the work first and foremost. From a more tactical perspective, though, to give people actual stuff they can do, I think guest posting still works. I think going out and looking for other people in your similar space that needs content and writing really cool content for them, because that's going to stand on the shoulders of their audience and stand on their shoulders and pull the people into your community. They've already got the audience, go there. Interviewing people on your site is, I think, really handy. Interviewing people who have an audience. So if you can actually interview people on a podcast or even an article, because they're going to then want to stroke their ego and, hey, look, I'm famous. I got interviewed over on this site over here, and they'll share it with their audience on Twitter and Facebook, and you can kind of get their audience eyeballs coming to your stuff. So I think kind of being strategic and working out who has the audience I want and how do I get in front of them and drag those people back kicking and screaming to my own site and my own little community.
Great advice. In terms of, you're very big in information products, and that's obviously a market that a lot of people are interested in because, again, they perceive it as passive income, write it once and set and forget. What are some tips that people need to understand if they're thinking about having an information product on any topic? What are some of the inside secrets or advice you can share?
Be wary of the sales letter, and I've kind of talked about that a few times. It's not as easy as it looks, first and foremost. Have integrity in what you're talking about. I see so many people, they'll build up this library of knowledge. No portfolio, a library. And I talk about this a lot, is that your library is all the stuff you've bought, you've read, you've learnt, Your portfolio is stuff you've actually done by applying that knowledge. And I see what a lot of people do is they build up this big library and then want to start teaching people how to actually do the stuff they've learned, but they've got no portfolio to back it up. So I think make sure you have a portfolio first, not only because it helps you sell your products more because you've got proof, but I think subconsciously for a lot of people that there's an incongruency in that, hang on, I know this stuff, but I haven't done it, so yeah, I'm trying to sell it, but I'm not playing full out in the sales and marketing of this because one day I might get, shown as a fraudster because I haven't actually really done any of this sort of stuff. And I think that sort of subconsciously holds people back in that they don't play full out in their marketing because they know, I don't really know this stuff well enough. I haven't really got any proof of this actually working. So I think making sure you do that apprenticeship that I referred to earlier and build up a portfolio of proof before you go and start your own information marketing business. If you're going to teach people how to, do social media, go out and work for companies for free and build up a portfolio of 4 or 5 case studies that you can say, look, this is what I've done. Here's the proof of actually working. Audience, this is how you can apply it in your business. I've proven it's done. Now come and buy my stuff, as opposed to, I know this stuff. I'm sure it'll work for you. Just buy my stuff. So I think do that apprenticeship and build up that portfolio. It makes a huge difference to the credibility of your sales, but also internally, subconsciously, it gives you more confidence to play full out in the marketing. I think a lot of people are being held back because they don't really believe their own hype. Yeah. Which is fair enough too, but I think that's something that these big internet marketers that you refer to don't talk about, in that they kind of try to perpetuate this industry and not really thinking about, hang on, where's the credibility and congruency and what's actually happening here. So I think those two things are really important. The other thing is, have an audience ready and waiting. So either find someone who's got an audience, that I kind of alluded to earlier, and say, hey, can we joint venture on this project, and we'll do this information product together. That happened to me recently. One US reached out to me after seeing me speak at a conference or recording of a conference and said, hey, let's do this product together. So I was really lucky that he came to me with a huge audience and lots of connections. That worked really well. But I think having that audience first, not only because you can make the product for them, but also just makes the marketing a whole lot easier. Otherwise, momentum is a finite thing, and I think if you spend all this effort writing an ebook or a report or an info product, and then go and market it, and in the first 2 weeks it goes poorly because you don't have a big enough audience, you lose your momentum and lose the buzz, and then it just sits there on the shelf, digital shelf, getting digital dust, becoming a really sore point in the back of your head. So I think that's important as well, to sort of actually have an audience ready and build something for those guys.
And in terms of content creation and copywriting, you've talked a couple of times, Pete, about writing good blogs and writing great content. What are your tips for writing great copy, and how important is copywriting to the whole process of sales and marketing, in your opinion?
Yeah, critical. It's absolutely critical because from a conversion perspective, in terms of people reading stuff and buying it, it's the words on the page that make a difference. To me, my advice is get a good editor or a good ghostwriter. I am great at talking, I'm great at selling face-to-face, but my grammar and spelling is terrible. So that's why I kind of neglected the blog a little bit, and doing a lot more podcasting because it's easier for me just to rant and talk, as you probably can guess. So, work out your skills. If you're a good copywriter, fantastic. I think you got to learn the basics of what makes good copy, because that'll come through in everything you talk about and say in any videos or interviews you do. But, for me, it's talking from integrity, kind of what I just alluded to. For me, it is about, okay, I'm not a great writer. I've got to find good editors, and in certain circumstances, find ghostwriters who are willing to write in your voice and write your message. Not saying go and find someone to go, hey, write 15 articles for me on this topic and then just post them on your blog. There's no integrity there. But saying, okay, hey, I want to chat with you for 15 minutes twice a week. I'm going to talk about this topic, and then I want you to write what I said up in an articulate manner, and then have that kind of stuff done. So work out where your strengths are again, and just work out what is it you do really well and leverage what you don't. And for me, I'm much better at talking to someone for 15 minutes, having that conversation transcribed, and having an editor or ghostwriter make that more articulate and structure it properly for an article that will be read. And that way it's still my voice, it's still my message and my points, but at least it's in an articulate way. Because if I try to write it myself, people will just be like, what the heck is this guy trying to say? It's going off on tangents with spelling errors and terrible grammar.
It really harks back to, again, do what you're good at, and you're a great advocate of that, Pete. So
Yep.
Just wrapping up, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time out today to speak with me, and good luck with all your ventures. They are very inspiring.
Thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Great.